I sabotaged my son's marriage, and now I'm watching it all fall apart. I've been called many things: overprotective, meddlesome, even controlling. But they don't know the whole story, do they? They don't know how much I sacrificed, how much I tried to protect my son from the mistakes I made when I was young. It all started with Rachel. She seemed perfect at first. Beautiful, smart, independent. Everything a mother could want for her son. But, oh, how I could see through that perfect little facade. There was something about her that rubbed me the wrong way from the start. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was there, lurking beneath her perfect smile. I tried to keep my distance, but Rachel, oh, she was so sweet. She did everything right. She would come over for dinner, bring gifts, help with little things around the house. She played the part of the perfect daughter-in-law. But, over time, I started to see small cracks in the mask. She would argue with my son over the smallest things. And I'd hear him, sitting in his room, venting about how she was getting more distant, more irritable. "She's just stressed, Mom," he would say. But I knew. I could see it. She didn't care about him the way he deserved. My instincts were telling me to act. To step in before my son made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. No, I was just protecting him, keeping him from making a mistake I couldn't undo. It wasn't until it was too late that I realized just how wrong I had been. I began planting seeds of doubt in his mind. Little things. Subtle comments about Rachel's attitude. "Have you noticed how she always seems so tired when she comes home?" I'd say, acting concerned. "Maybe she's seeing someone else, dear. You deserve someone who truly cares for you." At first, he didn't listen. But then came the day Rachel snapped. She accused me of trying to control everything. She said I was poisoning his mind, trying to turn him against her. But it was too late. He was already starting to pull away from her, even without me saying a word. I never wanted it to go this far. But, looking back now, I can see it clearly. Every word, every action, it was all part of my plan. To make sure he never married someone who didn't deserve him. To make sure he wasn't hurt. But I didn't consider the cost. I didn't think about how my actions might tear them apart, how I might drive a wedge between them that would never heal. Now, as I watch them fall apart, I can't help but wonder. Was it worth it? I should have seen it coming. But sometimes, when you're so sure you're doing the right thing, you miss the signs that everything is falling apart. I thought I was protecting my son, but in reality, I was suffocating him, and I didn't even realize it until he started pulling away from me too. It wasn't an overnight shift. It started with small things. He stopped calling me as often. The long chats we used to have about his day, his hopes, his plans for the future, slowly turned into quick texts and occasional visits. At first, I convinced myself it was just part of growing up. He had a wife now, and that was his new priority. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One evening, I overheard a conversation between them. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, it was just that they were sitting in the living room, their voices rising with every word, and I couldn't help but listen. "I can't do this anymore, Rachel. I don't feel the same way about you," my son said, his voice shaking. Rachel responded, her tone sharp, "What do you mean? You're just going to throw away everything we built because of your mother? She's the one who's been tearing us apart this whole time. She's the problem." I froze. Those words felt like a knife in my chest. My own son was blaming me. I had made him believe Rachel was the one at fault, but now he was seeing the truth. He was seeing the damage I had caused. And the worst part? It wasn't just Rachel who felt betrayed. It was him too. The realization hit me like a freight train. I had manipulated him, slowly but surely, until he didn't even trust his own judgment anymore. I had become the person I swore I'd never be, the mother who tried to control her son's life, his choices, his happiness. And then, to my horror, it all came crashing down. The next day, he called me. His voice was cold, distant. "Mom, I'm moving out," he said. "I can't do this anymore. You've made it clear that I'll never be happy unless I do things your way. I need space. I need to figure this out for myself." He didn't say anything more. He just hung up, leaving me standing there, my heart in my throat. The next few months were a blur. Rachel moved out, too, and the silence in the house grew unbearable. My son wasn't coming around anymore. He stopped picking up my calls. When he did answer, it was short and impersonal. I watched, helpless, as everything I'd worked so hard to manipulate and control crumbled before me. The mother I thought I was became the villain in my own son's life. Now, I'm left wondering if I've ruined my relationship with him forever. I tried to help, but all I've done is tear apart what was once beautiful. Time is a cruel thing. When you've lost someone you love, you think it'll get easier with time. But it doesn't. It just gets quieter, and with that silence comes the truth. The truth that I could have stopped it all, that I was the one who pushed him away. And now, here I am, drowning in regret. Weeks turned into months, and things only got worse. My son, Daniel, continued to pull further and further away. His phone calls became rare, and when he did call, they were brief, nothing like the warm conversations we used to have. I tried everything to get him to open up, but nothing worked. I sent texts, left voicemails, even showed up at his apartment unannounced. But it only made him more distant. It was Rachel who finally answered the door that day. I hadn't seen her in months, but I knew she still held the key to understanding my son. She looked different, tired, worn out, like she'd been through hell. I couldn't blame her. I had made her life miserable, too. "What do you want, Mrs. Patterson?" Rachel asked, her voice guarded. She wasn't the same sweet girl who once called me Mom. The bitterness in her tone stung. I need to talk to him. "Please," I pleaded, my voice trembling. I couldn't believe how low I'd fallen. I wasn't the woman I used to be, the one who had control, the one who had everything figured out. "Daniel doesn't want to see you right now," Rachel said, looking at me with pity. "You've done enough damage, haven't you?" Her words were sharp, but they were true. I had done damage. I had torn apart a bond that had been built over years, and now it was beyond repair. I didn't mean to. I just wanted him to be happy, I said, choking on the words. I wanted him to choose the right person. I thought I was doing what was best for him. Rachel shook her head, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and anger. "You thought you knew what was best, but you didn't. You drove him away. He was always going to make his own choices. You can't control everything, Mrs. Patterson. Not even your own son." I felt like I was suffocating. Rachel stepped back, about to close the door, but then she paused. "He's in the bedroom. You have 5 minutes. Don't waste it." I stepped into the apartment, my heart racing. There was so much I wanted to say, but I wasn't sure how to begin. Daniel was sitting on the couch, his eyes red and swollen, like he had been crying. When he saw me, his expression hardened. He looked so much like his father in that moment, so much like the man who used to love me unconditionally before I ruined it all. "Mom," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth. "What do you want?" I stood there, unsure of what to say, but then the words spilled out before I could stop them. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I've done. I should have never tried to control your life. I was wrong. I know I hurt you. And I'll never forgive myself for that." He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me with those cold eyes that once had so much love in them. Finally, he spoke, but his voice was quieter now, like he was afraid of saying too much. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Mom. What you did. It hurt me more than you can imagine. You pushed me into a corner where I felt like I had no choice but to shut you out. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again." Those words cut through me like a blade, but I couldn't argue with them. I had betrayed him in the worst way possible. And now, I was left with nothing but the consequences of my actions. I understand, I whispered, my heart breaking. I'll leave you alone if that's what you want. I just wanted you to know that I love you, and I'm truly sorry for everything. Daniel didn't reply. He simply turned his head away, his silence louder than any words could be. I stood there for a moment longer, hoping for anything that would make this right. But there was nothing. I left without saying another word, my chest heavy with regret. The door closed behind me, and in that moment, I realized that I had lost him. For good. The days following that conversation were some of the hardest of my life. I woke up every morning with a sense of heaviness in my chest, as if the weight of everything I had done was pressing down on me. I tried to go about my day, pretending like everything was fine, but nothing felt right. My son, the one person I had loved and raised with everything I had shut me out completely. I had pushed him away, and now there was nothing I could do to bring him back. It didn't help that I couldn't shake the image of Daniel's face the way he looked at me, almost as if he had lost hope in me. His eyes, once filled with warmth and love, now seemed cold and distant. I couldn't even recognize him anymore. And I couldn't blame him. I had destroyed the trust we had built over the years, all because of my selfish need to control his life. I thought about calling him every day, texting him, but I knew better. I had to give him space, as much as it hurt. I knew he needed time to process everything, to figure out who he was without me in his life. But the silence was unbearable. It gnawed at me constantly. Rachel tried to reach out to me a few times, but I couldn't face her. She had every right to be angry with me, and I couldn't bear the thought of hearing more harsh truths from her. So, I stayed away, keeping to myself. But even in my isolation, I couldn't escape the painful realization that I had lost the most important person in my life. One evening, after days of feeling like I was drowning in my own guilt, I finally decided to leave the house. I needed to get out, to clear my head. I wandered through the streets, my mind consumed with thoughts of what had gone wrong. As I walked, I found myself standing in front of a small park where Daniel and I used to visit when he was a child. We would sit on the swings together, laughing and talking about everything and nothing at all. It felt like a lifetime ago. I sat on the same swing we had shared, my legs too short to reach the ground, and I let the tears fall. I hadn't cried like this in years, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. The guilt, the regret, the overwhelming sense of loss, it all came crashing down on me at once. Why did I do this? I whispered to no one. Why couldn't I just let him be happy? I stayed there for what felt like hours, letting the pain wash over me. The night was quiet, and I felt utterly alone. My heart ached for Daniel, for the relationship we had once shared, for the love that I had thrown away. And I couldn't help but wonder if I would ever have the chance to fix things. The next morning, I woke up with a new resolve. I didn't know if I could ever earn Daniel's forgiveness, but I knew one thing for certain, I couldn't give up. I couldn't let my son slip away forever. No matter how much it hurt, I had to try. I sent him one last message, a simple text that said everything I needed to say. I love you, Daniel. I always have, and I always will. I'm so sorry for everything. I'll wait for you, however long it takes. Please know that I'm here, whenever you're ready to talk. I hit send, my heart racing as I stared at the screen. And then I waited. The silence was deafening, but I held on to the faint hope that, maybe, just maybe, my son would reach out. Days passed, and still nothing. My phone remained quiet. But I refused to give up. It's strange how time works when you're waiting for something. The days blend together in a haze, filled with the hope that each moment might be the one where everything changes. But deep down, I knew better. I knew that waiting wasn't enough, that words alone couldn't undo the damage I had caused. Still, I clung to that hope, and I held on to my phone with a kind of desperation, checking it constantly, hoping for a sign. I kept replaying our last conversation in my mind. His words, so full of hurt, echoed in my ears. You never understood me, Mom. You never let me be who I really am. Those words cut deeper than anything I had ever felt before, and I knew they were true. I had spent my whole life trying to mold him into the son I wanted, instead of accepting him for who he was. And now, I was paying the price. But I wasn't giving up. I couldn't. Every morning, I tried to get out of bed, forcing myself to put on a smile for the world around me. I didn't want anyone to see how broken I felt inside. I kept up appearances, as mothers often do, but inside, I was shattered. I thought about Daniel every second of every day. What was he doing? How was he feeling? Was he happy? Was he angry with me? I started going to therapy. It wasn't easy. Facing my mistakes and acknowledging the role I played in the breakdown of our relationship was difficult, but it was necessary. The therapist helped me see things from a different perspective. I had to stop trying to fix things in my own way and instead give Daniel the space he needed to heal, to come to terms with everything in his own time. But no matter how many steps I took toward healing, I still couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't enough. That maybe I had already lost him forever. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult therapy session, I was sitting on the porch, staring out at the empty yard, when I heard a soft knock on the door. My heart skipped a beat as I stood up, hoping, praying, that it was Daniel. But when I opened the door, it wasn't him. It was Rachel. She stood there with a gentle smile, her eyes soft and understanding. "I didn't think you'd be home," she said, stepping inside. "I thought we should talk." We sat down at the kitchen table, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was on the outside looking in. Rachel was here for me, not to judge, but to help me understand that I wasn't alone in this. She had been through her own struggles with Daniel, but despite everything, she still loved him. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was the only one trying to fix things. "I've been so lost," I admitted, my voice cracking. "I don't know how to make it right." Rachel reached across the table, her hand on mine. "You're trying," she said softly. "That's what matters. You can't undo the past, but you can try to build a new future with him. And when he's ready, he'll come back." Her words gave me a sense of comfort, a small sliver of hope. I had been so focused on my own guilt that I had forgotten that healing wasn't just about me. It was about both of us, me and Daniel. And maybe, just maybe, if I gave him the space he needed, he would come to me when he was ready. The next few days passed quietly. No message from Daniel, but I didn't feel as frantic. I focused on myself, continued with therapy, and worked on rebuilding the parts of me that had been damaged. I knew that even if Daniel didn't come back right away, I had to be whole for myself first. And then, a week later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. "I've been thinking about what you said. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I'm getting there. I need time, Mom. But I'll reach out when I can." My heart swelled with relief, and tears welled in my eyes. He wasn't ready to forgive me yet, but he was willing to try. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe that everything could be okay again. I wasn't sure how long the road to redemption would be, or how long it would take to rebuild what had been broken. But I was ready to take that first step. Slowly, carefully, and with all the love I had left to give. It's said that the hardest part of healing isn't the pain, it's the waiting. The waiting for the other person to be ready, the waiting for forgiveness to come, the waiting for things to fall into place. I spent the next few weeks in limbo, unsure of when Daniel would finally reach out, if at all. His message had given me hope, but it wasn't enough to erase the years of silence, the years of hurt. I didn't know how to move forward when everything still felt so fragile. During that time, Rachel became my steady anchor. She would come over in the evenings, bringing homemade dinner or just sitting with me in comfortable silence. She never asked about Daniel or pressured me to do anything, but I could feel her support. I knew she had her own struggles with him after all. She was the one who had to hold the pieces of their broken relationship together for so long, but she still offered me kindness and patience. One evening, as we sat on the porch, she spoke up, breaking the comfortable silence that had fallen between us. Faith, she said softly, looking at me with a knowing expression, I know you're scared. You've been through so much, and you don't want to rush him, but you also want him to come back, to forgive you, to heal with you. But that can't be forced. I nodded, my throat tight. Rachel was right, and yet, there was a part of me that felt like time was slipping away, that I needed to do something. I couldn't just sit and wait. I know, I whispered. But what if he never comes back? What if he can't forgive me? I've hurt him so much. I don't know if he'll ever look at me the same way. Rachel turned to face me, her gaze steady and warm. You've taken the first step, Faith. You've shown him that you're willing to change, that you're willing to grow. That's more than most people ever do. Don't rush it. He'll come to you when he's ready. But you have to be ready too. Her words settled into my heart, a quiet reassurance that I needed to hear. She was right, healing takes time, not just for him, but for me as well. I couldn't change the past, but I could control what I did in the present. I could work on myself and, when the time was right, I could offer Daniel the unconditional love and understanding he deserved. Days turned into weeks, and life began to feel like it was slowly returning to some semblance of normalcy. I threw myself into my therapy, committed to understanding my own flaws and how I could be a better person not just for Daniel, but for myself as well. I started working on old hobbies I had long abandoned, things I once loved but gave up in the chaos of life, reading, painting, even gardening. One rainy afternoon, as I tended to the small garden in my backyard, I got the call I had been waiting for. It was Daniel. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. It had been so long since I'd heard his voice, I almost forgot how much I missed him. Mom? His voice was tentative, almost like he was unsure of what to say. It's me. The flood of emotions that rushed through me was overwhelming. I could hardly speak, but I managed to choke out, Daniel. I've missed you so much. I've been waiting for this. He cut me off, but not in a harsh way. I know, Mom. I know you've been waiting. And I've been thinking a lot about everything. I just needed some time to figure things out. But I want to talk. I want to try. I could hardly believe my ears. My heart swelled with relief, and tears of joy welled in my eyes. After all the pain, all the time apart, he was finally ready to open up. It wasn't a complete fix, but it was a start. We talked for hours that day. We talked about everything: the past, the pain, the mistakes. Daniel told me how he felt, how he had struggled with everything I had done, and I listened. I didn't interrupt, didn't try to defend myself. For once, I allowed him to express his anger, his hurt, and his confusion without trying to fix it right away. I realized that listening to him was the greatest gift I could give him. When we finally said goodbye, I knew it wasn't the end of the journey. We weren't fixed overnight, but I could feel the weight of years of silence beginning to lift, little by little. Over the next few weeks, we talked more. Each conversation was a small victory, a slow but steady rebuilding of our relationship. It wasn't easy. We both had our scars, our baggage, but we were both trying. And that's all that mattered. I had learned so much in this process. I had learned that healing doesn't happen overnight, that it requires time, effort, and vulnerability. But most importantly, I learned that love, true, unconditional love, was worth fighting for. And when Daniel finally came to visit me again, we didn't have all the answers, but we had hope. We had the promise of a new beginning, and that was more than enough. The sun shone brightly that day, as if the world itself was celebrating the new chapter of our lives. Daniel had agreed to visit me again, this time with no plans of leaving anytime soon. It had been a slow and cautious reunion, but as each day passed, we found new ways to connect, to understand each other in ways we hadn't before. We talked for hours, not just about the past, but about our hopes for the future. We had both changed. I could feel it in the way he looked at me, in the way we spoke to each other, now gentle, patient, with no rush. The house felt different too. It had been quiet for so long, but now, it echoed with the sound of our laughter, of conversations that weren't forced. We spent our evenings cooking together, and our mornings in peaceful silence, sipping tea as we watched the world wake up outside the window. I no longer feared the silence. I embraced it because I knew we were moving forward, not just as mother and son, but as two people who were learning to trust each other again. We also began visiting Rachel more often. I knew it meant a lot to Daniel to see her, and for me, it was a chance to thank her for everything she had done. Rachel had been the one who kept me grounded when everything else seemed to be falling apart. Her kindness, her support, it had been invaluable. Over time, she and Daniel started to reconnect, slowly but surely. It was a tentative friendship at first, but it grew stronger with each passing week. There were still moments of tension. There were days when the pain of the past would creep up on us, threatening to undo all the progress we'd made. But we learned to sit with those feelings, to acknowledge them without letting them control us. It wasn't easy, but it was real. And that was the most important part of all. One evening, Daniel and I sat on the porch, the sun beginning to set in the distance. He turned to me, his expression thoughtful. "Mom, I know I've said this before, but I need you to hear me when I say it," he said, his voice steady but emotional. "I forgive you. I know you've hurt me, and I know I've hurt you too. But I forgive you. And I hope, one day, you can forgive yourself too." The words were like balm on an old wound, soothing and healing in ways I hadn't realized I needed. My throat tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. I had always wondered if this moment would ever come, if Daniel would ever find it in his heart to forgive me. And now, here it was. The weight I had carried for so long began to lift, piece by piece. "I've forgiven you too, Daniel," I whispered, my voice breaking. "And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for all the time I lost. You're my son, and I love you with all my heart." For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from forgetting or ignoring the past, it was the peace that came from acceptance, from knowing that we were both willing to move forward together, flaws and all. As the weeks turned into months, our relationship continued to grow stronger. We had our ups and downs, but now, there was a sense of balance between us. Trust was being rebuilt, slowly but surely. I had learned to listen more, to speak less, and to give Daniel the space he needed to heal. And he had learned to let go of the anger and resentment that had kept him from me for so long. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real. And that was enough. A year later, Daniel invited me to his new apartment in the city. It wasn't much, just a small, cozy space, but it was his. As I stood in the doorway, watching him proudly show me around, I realized just how far we had come. This was the son I had raised strong, independent, capable. And he was here, with me, building his own life. "You've done it, Daniel," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You've grown into such an incredible man." He smiled, that familiar, mischievous grin that always made my heart swell. "I had a good teacher," he said softly. "And I had a lot of time to think about what really mattered. Family. Love. Forgiveness. It's what we have, Mom." And for the first time, I knew that we had truly healed. We weren't perfect, but we were whole. We had given each other the one thing we needed most. A chance. As I left his apartment that day, I felt lighter than I had in years. There was no longer the weight of regret or sorrow pressing on my chest. Instead, there was hope. Hope for the future, hope for our relationship, and hope for the possibility of even greater things to come. And when I looked back at the road we had traveled, I knew it had all been worth it. The pain, the mistakes, the broken pieces, we had turned them into something beautiful, something strong. Together.